Well, I was recommended some reading earlier on. I thought I'd come to this video because it relates. And it covers the story of this Wem ghost. So, we'll watch some of this, because it kind of gives the story a little bit. Kind of jumps in a little bit in it. But
this photograph of the ghost girl was taken as Wem Town Hall burned to the ground in Shropshire, United Kingdom in 1995. At the time, nobody saw this girl standing in the doorway of the burning building. Onlookers were stopped by police and firefighters from approaching the burning town hall. It was only after the fire that the photo was developed and the photographer discovered the ghostly image of the young girl. Experts analyzed both the photo and negative and reported that they had not been altered or faked. Skeptics say that the image of the girl may just be the convenient trick of the light, with smoke, flame, and shadow creating the optical illusion at the moment the photographer took this picture. Do you think that's possible?
well, borrowing this clip, by the way, from a video called The Ghost of Wem Hall. It's on a creepypasta video, so take it with a pinch of salt. Let's have a look at the article. So an article in the Shropshire Star sent to me by someone who watches some of my videos. There's a postcard, Answer the Riddle. A chap called Brian Lear. He noticed this image of the girl, zoomed in from the previous image you saw. And this postcard image taken, the original photo was taken in 1922. There is what's described as a striking similarity, striking resemblance between the two. This girl, that one there. So the Shropshire Star says of this image that was taken in the 90s that it may well look similar to, sorry, I just did that, may look similar to that. And they agree. And it kind of blows out the water the previous idea that was a girl from the 1600s, late 1600s, basically, I think it's late. A girl from the 1600s basically burnt to death, and it's believed that it was her ghost that appeared at this other fire. So now they have another idea that seems to be the case. So people who believe in one, they now believe in the other, and so people still hold on to the previous idea, causing probably some schism. But in any case, of the opinions of, you know, what this could be, what it actually is, I don't believe it, because I don't know if this girl is dead or alive. You know, she's probably dead now. 1922 is a long time ago, but I know people in their 70s, 80s and 90s. And is it possible she's still alive? Possibly not. Probably not. Almost certainly not 80 years ago. Longer than that, Christ. 100 years ago. But in any case, where's the time go? In any case, do we know if she grew up? Do we know if she had kids, had a family, died at the ripe old age of, you know, 110 or 120? She looks around about 10 there, so that's 110. You know, do we know? In other words, do we know if she moved on, carried on with her life? No, but we've got a picture of a girl in the background that we've zoomed in, cropped in on, and it looks like a bit like that girl because of the lack of detail. Which says something about the original image, because when you crop into that, you've got a profound lack of detail. People want to believe that kind of stuff, and then they say, we've got the answer. Let's put it in local news, you know, and it's like, well, you put it in the local news, and okay, it might get a few people looking at the article out of curiosity, worth mentioning out of local interest, and paranormal interest on top of that. But what's actually confirmed? Nothing. I don't think the article even says whether or not they've identified the girl, because I don't think they had. When I read it earlier, I didn't see it was speculation that the girl's 14-year-old from, the late 1600s, so 17th century, and blah, 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 blah. Postcard, yeah, and it doesn't actually say whether or not the girl lived or died, and that's the end of the article, I'm afraid. It all goes on to normal stuff like Corona and NHS and, I don't know, more Corona. But yeah, in any case, yeah, interesting idea. The original photographer has now passed, that's worth mentioning. And, you know, it's been a long time since the picture was taken as well. It's taken back in the 1990s. So, yeah, What more need be said? I don't find it very convincing, to be honest. We have a photo of another girl who's pulling a bit of a face. Apparently it looks a little bit like, as do, like, if you took like 90% of the population, had a very little amount of detail, and put them into this image, it wouldn't make much of a difference. This noisy image, originally taken on film, since scanned, obviously put onto digital, checking into the details and some level of pixelization as you zoom in, it's not very clear. Not very clear at all. So what do we get from this? We get very little. We get an image that isn't very clear versus an image that isn't very clear, opinions that are very strong, and as it said in that creepypasta video which I used before,
Skeptics say that the image of the girl may just be the convenient trick of the light, with smoke, flame, and shadow creating the optical illusion at the moment the photographer took this picture.
Of all the pictures taken of this event, a town hall burning down in the town of Wen, well, you know, it doesn't actually prove much. Did any of them actually get anything else similar to that? Why is it ghosts only appear in some images, or in some angles at some times, and you get something that looks a little bit like a face, even though it could easily be, say, a piece of wood, as was suggested at the time back in the 90s? Can you say it is not a ghost without sufficient evidence? No. Lack of data, we have to remain relatively agnostic about the whole thing, I suppose. As believers should remain agnostic about the idea whether or not it is in fact evidential. Just saying yes, yes it is a huge mistake. So yeah, I might start doing more focused videos like this if I'm being provided with more material. It's interesting to look into because I know that many people have a great interest in this kind of thing. A friend sent me this image and I thought I'd make a quick mention of it at the end of this video just to say what it is, because there's a few bits in there, there's a few smears and things like that, but there's a few dots, few little dots around the place, and the picture is basically taken at a place of, you know, great natural beauty. Try and take a picture with a little camera, and this is going back a long time, and or a good while. I wouldn't say a long time, it depends on what you mean by what I mean by that, what you mean by that. I'm rambling. But basically, what are the orbs? What are the orbs? It's a key thing, because I've mentioned before in previous videos of this kind, dust. Dust is very common. It's outside. It's not going to be dust. So what were the claims, or the recommendations, the explanations made by people of different beliefs? Or some people said, well, maybe it's orbs. Maybe it's nature spirits. Turns out it's something very different indeed. Oh, and it wasn't spirits of local clergymen, as one person claimed. No, it was actually midges. Midges up there in Scotland. And yeah, you know, it's one thing that I could have well, I wouldn't have guessed that, actually. I would have, you know, probably tried to say something else. But you can imagine how people would guess that. You go to a place of beauty, you go and try and take a picture. You use a flash illuminates things, especially close up, out of focus elements, and they can appear to be orbs. But to people who want to believe in something, you know, obviously something beyond themselves, something magical, something mystical, they say, no, it must be monks or clergymen, or it must be nature spirits, or, you know, fairies. Other people might say it's, I don't know, anything really. They could, you know, say anything depending on what they believe. So I just thought I'd make note of that, because a lot of people forget there are reasonable explanations for pretty much everything. If you have enough data, you can come to a reasonable explanation. If you don't, it's not very reasonable, even if it is a skeptical, you know, scientifically based, or trying to be scientifically based opinion. If you don't have enough data, you can't know. But very often people with a strong belief in the supernatural will claim it must be supernatural. A medium or psychic might say it's clergyman. Someone who's more into nature, magic and neo-paganism, they might say it's nature spirits, fairies. Some other people might say it's, I don't know, jinn, it's demons. Some people would say that because of their beliefs, because of their biases. Myself, I said I didn't know. And it's interesting, it was something quite mundane, because I thought, what is that? Is it like lights? You know, is there some kind of, I don't know what. You know, I didn't have the guess in me. And then I was told, oh right, it's midges. Midges. You illuminate them flies, those little bastards. And yeah, turns out it is perfectly explainable. How many images out there where we don't know the original author have an equally simplistic and what should be obvious explanation? But we're so busy focusing on the idea of the mystery, we don't think of the rational and logical possibilities, the things that a thing could easily be and probably is. We're too busy focusing on something which is remarkable and, in some cases, ridiculous. Maybe that happens too much. So, yeah, thank you for watching, and if you have any more questions, I might bring it up in a future video.